Why is China getting much worse press in the past few years? And why are Western media the most powerful ones? I still don't have a clear answer, but let me share with you a real story I heard recently. And we can see what a powerful corporate media could do to a common person. The protagonist is 21-year-old German college student Navina Heyden.
Hello, 大家好，我的名字是 Navina， 我的中文名字是海雯娜。
Navina is quite active on social media and sometimes share her opinions on China-related topics. That has just got on someone's nerves. Not only has she been attacked online, but also she and her family were harassed in Germany by Xinjiang and Hong Kong separatists. One day, Navina got an interview request from the German media Die Welt.
Before I was doing the interview, I always thought that those articles are very biased because those journalists simply don't know better. So I thought maybe if I give them a different perspective, they're possibly more objective. But it turns out they don't care about my viewpoint at all. They just care to write an article that is slandering me. And they also don't seem to have any sympathy on what this article can do to their interviewees. Personally, after this incident, I feel like I'm now much more familiar with how those Western journalists are working and how ignorant and also immoral they can be. But I also learned that when you're being slandered by media, you should take your courage and fight back against them.
Facing such kind of targeted bombing of disinformation, instead of escaping and hiding, she picked up her weapon for self-defense. Of course, a legal one.
Yeah, for now I won the case. And the decision of the court is that all authors of the article have to revise it. They are now prohibited from ever writing certain slandering about me again. And I'm supposed to receive a small compensation. However, this lawsuit is not final yet because the Axel Springer and the newspaper were rejecting this decision. So there will still be some more coming. But I'm actually very confident that I will win this case in the end. Because I was discussing this issue with my lawyer, and they say unless the newspaper is giving some very new and very convincing arguments to reject the decision, they will not change anything.
It seems that the truth is not always clouded by disinformation. The question is where the clouds come from. What's even stranger, Navina is not the only independent blogger who speaks positively about China and then got labeled as propagandist. Let's see what Navina thinks about that.
This is actually a speculation I have. I noticed that actually a lot of influencers are sharing a similar situation like me. And all those accusations, they're sharing a similar pattern. So what I noticed is, first of all this slandering is coming from pro-US newspaper agencies. Like in my case, it was from Axel Springer, which in Germany is notorious for spreading pro-transatlantic propaganda. I also noticed that the accusations are all the same. They all accuse us of being a Chinese propagandist. We all have at least some connection to the government, and usually we're paid or we benefit from our activities. And all of it started to happen from last year, especially this year. So here's my speculation. If you consider the background that China and the USA are facing some geopolitical conflicts, you would naturally conclude who will benefit from such a slandering campaign. So I would think it may be a public opinion manipulation to affect, at least for Germany, I can say, to affect our German policies to suit the US national interest. But as I say, it's a speculation.
Honestly speaking, the way how this 21-year-old approached my question really strikes me. She put herself in a much larger context. What she wrote on Twitter also surprises me. I become more strategic and balanced after learning Chinese culture and history. I wonder how this European girl got interested in China and Chinese culture in the first place.
Actually, before I was starting to learn Chinese, I was only interested into Japanese or Korean culture. And I didn't actually care for the Chinese language, culture, politics, because I feel like Japanese and Korean culture is much more better marketed. However, it was actually my Chinese friends who encouraged me to learn more about Chinese culture and history. And after that, I find that this culture is so profound and so rich. And that's actually how I got involved in it. So when you learn the philosophy or the culture of China, you feel like you're much more enlightened, and you even start to doubt your previous viewpoints, and it makes you think that maybe what I thought was not so absolute after all.
It is better to travel 10,000 miles than to read 10,000 books. I asked Navina if she has ever considered coming back to China again and how she looks at China's economy, since she majored in business economics.
Actually, I am very much interested into working and studying in China. I was actually planning to study there next year, but the problem is right now I can't get any student visas. Regarding China's economy, I really feel like China's economic growth is a miracle in human history. China alone already brought hundreds of millions of people out of poverty. And in our Western media, I feel like this is either not mentioned at all or downplayed. And I actually think poverty is a source of a lot of troubles we have in our society, like human trafficking, drug dealing, war, conflicts, you name it. Also, in the past decades, I see China has produced a lot of affordable products into those developing nations, and this improved their living standard drastically. In regard to Germany, I feel like most Germans are not really ready to see China being so successful and also begin to do well in high-tech fields. But I don't think it's China's problem, really. Instead, at least here in Germany, we have a really too high cost for our administrations, not enough support for innovation, and also we lack strategic planning. Me and my Chinese friends, we also once participated in a technology and an innovation contest in China for multiple times. Well, here in Germany, we can't even find any support for our ideas, so this is something actually very sad. Also in Germany, there are a lot of places that take over 20 years to even build a road, and let's not talk about the Berlin airport. So I think those problems we're facing in Germany, they will not be solved by always spreading lies about China and blaming them in our local newspaper.
Towards the end of our conversation, the young German lady shared with me how Sino-German relationship is like in the eyes of her and her peers.
It will be difficult. What I can tell in the short term is that most of our parties, they all have an interest into showing some strength against China. So probably in the first time you will see our relationship with China will be worsened. But to my judgment, actually making enemies with China is not strategic, and it's also against our German interests because we're benefiting from a good relationship with China. Those kind of gestures will not be sustainable, and if we consider that maybe in the future we might have another Trump come into the office, then I really think that making enemies with China will only do us damage. But another thing I can see positively is that many young Germans actually oppose to have a stronger tie with the US government. For young people, actually mocking the US is some sort of political correctness. So I can see that maybe in the future, at least, we will try to distance ourselves more from the USA and maybe be more careful when we praise them so openly. So maybe if also China is doing well, then I am very optimistic for our future. I like to play Genshin Impact a lot because it has a very good quality. And also the Chinese in this game is very authentic. The first city you enter is also German-based. So for a lot of German people, they feel like, this is something I know. I've been to a lot of cities in China. And so far, I like Qingdao the most because the city is not as expensive as Shanghai. The climate is very good. It's not too hot and not too cold. And it has a very good beer.